Hello again, Coffee Chat friends. Here I am standing on the banks of the mighty Skeena River. Right across the river there is Terrace, BC, just visiting my brother out here. And I wanted to do a little update on two coffee chats ago actually. I'm a little bit tardy, I've been on the road a bit, haven't gotten the updates here. The last coffee chat in Windsor was on the topic of motivation. And that came as a result of a very specific thing that happened in my life, which was very significant. And we did talk about motivation before, but just thought it was appropriate to give a little chat about it again. It was a great discussion we had. I think there was 4 of us there. Once again, we were there till they kicked us out about 10:30, something like that, at the Greek Grill on Tecumseh. Fantastic little meeting it was. So once again, it was on motivation, and I didn't take a lot of notes, to be honest with you. I took a few. There was somebody mentioned a guy named Sean Stevenson. He talked about emotions and the size of your butt. That sounds kind of funny. There's a B-U-T. Butt this, butt that. I'm gonna do this, but kind of thing. Sometimes that butts get in our way. I think that was the point there. There's also another. Lisa Nichols was mentioned also as a motivational speaker, somebody who was very inspirational, motivational for the one mentioning it. Don't know much about her. Could watch a couple of YouTube videos. Worthwhile checking out on YouTube. Lisa Nichols. Motivation, though, the few things I had to say on it. The basic definition of it, as I took from my dictionary, are the meaning is reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. Or in other words, the general willingness for someone to do something. And the etymology of the word, too, is quite enlightening, quite insightful. It means it comes from the same essence of the word move, to move, right? Which comes from the Latin movare. If I got that for all you Latin buffs out there, did I get that correct? I'm not sure. But that basically means to move. Movare. Motivation to me is very much related to the word why. W-H-Y. So, why often helps us answer the question why we're not moving. You know, motivation is something often we want to have in order to, if I want to go over there, I gotta have a reason why. Very often, if it's conscious, if I'm just sleepwalking, then I don't need a why. But if I'm gonna do something intentionally, then I gotta have a reason to do it. And where does this why come from? I'm going to attempt to answer that to myself, because once again, it's always to whoever's speaking, right? In the use of a story, I did get permission from my son to tell this story. I'll tell it as best I can, not to take up too much of your time or too much of the point of what I'm trying to say, rather. About a couple weeks ago, just a few days before we had this coffee chat actually, my son and I were riding. My son is 16 now, by the way. We like to go for bike rides through parks and streets and all over the place. And they were continually getting longer. My son was taking more and more risks and more, he's learning more. He's 16, he's a good cyclist by now. We normally wear a helmet. This time we didn't. I'm not going to get into that, but as you can see, that wasn't really a great decision. At all a good decision. We were on this trail in a, natural area very similar to here. You can't really see, but across the river, there's lots of trees and trails and so on in the park over there on Ferry Island. Gravel trail. We were used to riding mostly on streets and paved walkways. My son liked to try doing different things, a little bit of a pop wheelie, accelerating quickly and this sort of thing. He was ahead of me on the trail, about 200 feet probably, and he did something, lost control. His wheel didn't grab well onto the gravel when he went, and when he came down, wheel went out, bang, he went down. And the first thing that came to my mind was road rash, right? I mean, here he had shorts on, short sleeve shirt, and he planted heavy. And, you know, it's like big sandpaper, right? But what was different about it is, usually when a young guy goes down, I'd fall off my bike many times as a kid, jump up right away, right? You know, like, road rash. But he didn't. Boom, he went down and stayed down. So I picked up my speed and got right up to him, jumped off my bike, ran up to him, yelling his name. No answer. His back was to me and he was on his side. I went right up to him, yelling his name, "Can you hear me?" Looked over, saw his face. It was starting to go like this. And his hands were going like this, and they were shaking. And his feet were shaking, everything was shaking. He was starting to froth at the mouth. His eyes were starting to roll. They were partly open. I go, "Ooh, man, what is this?" I thought it was some kind of a convulsion. I didn't even know what it was. But I kept trying to get him to respond in some way. I tried to get a pulse on his arm, but his arm was moving too much. I couldn't. Shortly after that, everything went silent. He went calm, his head went down, his muscles went limp. I reached for his arm, no pulse. I couldn't see any breath. I scrambled for my phone, got my phone out, started dialing 911 while trying to give him modified CPR. I didn't want to move him right away. Might have a broken neck, right? Modified CPR, I called 911, I'm talking to 911, I'm giving him CPR. And during this whole process, breath started to come back into him. I got a hold of 911, things were happening, but he was still completely out. I still didn't want to move him. I just wanted to make sure that he had open airways, all this sort of thing. Long story short, the ambulance finally arrived, got there, through all these bike trails. It finally managed to get in there, loaded him up, and once he was in the ambulance, I called my wife, and I emotionally broke down. It was just too much. It was like, I thought I lost him. I thought he died. And went to the hospital. My wife came to the hospital, but she couldn't drive because we have a single lane. Her van was in front, my car behind. My keys were in my pocket, and my spare key was in my wallet. 2 cars in the drive. She had to take a taxi to the hospital, 4 to 5 kilometers away. Now, when it was time to go, after he got checked out by the doctor, who confirmed that he had a concussion, we knew that anyways, and he had a seizure. Seizure was related to the concussion, so he's probably going to be okay. CAT scan, the whole works. He was good to go. But I wanted to be comfortable going home, so I told my wife, I'm going to go get the car. But it's 4 some kilometers away. I could have taken a taxi. But I was what? Motivated to get that car, so I began to run. Now, years ago, I used to be a runner, but I haven't run for a long time, and quite frankly, am beginning to have a not so flat belly anymore. But remember, I was motivated. There was something, there was a why behind it, that I wanted that car now. So I ran. If I could measure how fast I ran, I don't know how fast it was very fast. In fact, there was a bicycle riding in the same direction as I was, because I pretty much had to go from the hospital to my house, side street, back to hospital, 4.5 kilometers. There was a bike going in my direction. About halfway home, I passed him. Bicycle. Ran, got the car, came back, and passed the bicycle. He was still going this way. I was going this way with the car. It was fast. I was pouring, soaking sweat. What is the moral to this story? Well, I was motivated. I wanted my son to feel comfortable on his way home. I wanted to drive him home after what I felt was my part in him almost dying. And as I ran, I thought about this, and I realized that because he got to live again, I, in a certain way, got to live again, because I'm telling you, during that time that I thought I lost and part of me died, and I wouldn't be standing here with the same living experience had that happened. Why? Extremely powerful when we can capture it. And I'm not saying we have to have our son or daughter or loved one almost die for us to have a strong motivation to live. No, I'm not saying that. However, we can look into our lives and realize that life is for the living. And we can grasp it and live like we are dying. Because surely, as life is true, we are. I realized how precious life is and how sensitive it is. It can be snuffed out like that in any moment. So why not live it while we can? Now, I've talked about this before in a few other chats. The idea of what I call the continuum of advancement. We human beings, individually within us, it's our nature, which is exemplified through all of us collectively, are continually advancing in our growth of knowledge, of experiment, of inquisitiveness, of inventiveness. iPhone 6 just came out. It didn't exist a couple of years ago or a year ago, as an example. We don't have the concept of direct ownership of another human being anymore. It was called slavery. Nobody thinks that's legitimate anymore. At one time it was perfectly legitimate. We continue to grow. And within each and every one of us, when we do something, there's always a why to it. I plot this in this continuum of advancement, in rather a mathematical chart. It has an x-axis, the horizontal axis I call time. We're all on a time continuum. Here in this world, see the flow of that river. Tick, 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 tick. It goes down, it never reverses. Unless you're in Brunswick, there was reversing falls. But that's not time, that's just the water flowing back. Time doesn't go back, as far as we know it. It doesn't care about us. Time is psychopathic. It doesn't care about us. It goes on. But we all want things within that time, don't we? We all realize we want something. And usually we think it takes a little bit of time. Usually, if we set a goal, for example, to get something, we could plot it. We could say it's going to take me this much time. But if we really think about it and consider it, we realize there's also a y-axis. I call it a y-axis. Those of you who are mathematical will know that it's the y-axis, but I call it the W-H-Y axis. Life is an up and down of quality of life. In the basement, there is despair, anger, hatred, those sorts of things. In the stratosphere, there is love, appreciation, caring, these sorts of things. And if we're honest, we realize when we want something, even materialistically, there is a Y which corresponds over to the Y-axis. You can read my book that I'm publishing right now that's coming out. It's called Coffee Chat on improving our quality, what does it even call it? I forget now. Coffee Chat on improving the quality of our life experience. Or you can go to www.coffeechat.webs.com, read through some of the blogs there, and I talk about it here and there. Also in my previous book, Free Your Inner Genie, there's a chart in there which shows this. It's basically an X and Y axis, and in the X and Y axis there's a plot of where we are at the apex of those two, at the intersection of those two. That's us in the moment, right here in the moment, right? We want something. We plot it out. We always want an improved quality of life. Very few people want to actually end up in despair, right? They might end up in despair, but they don't want to. That's for another topic. We want to have happiness. In my case, when I was running, I wanted to feel that I was making a difference in my son's life for that moment. See, I wanted to get there so that I could have that why. It didn't feel like I wanted it for me. But if we're honest, there's always a we experience in our life. It's the only life we have, is our life. And we can live it vicariously through others, though. It takes on this even greater, I don't mean living for others, through others rather, but for others. Maybe vicarious is the wrong term. However, but it's still within us, nevertheless. Mother Teresa worked for many others, but her experience was within her. And because she helped others, she got to feel that love that she gave in manifold ways. So on this continuum of advancement, we have the y-axis. We can realize where we are. We go out in time to get something, new car, new house, love of our life, whatever it is, because we want to have an improved quality of life. So we plot it out in time and up in quality. We draw that back across. And in that process, we can actually experience how we desire it initially. We can visualize it. I can see myself getting to that car. We have to believe in the possibility. There's an ancient saying that whatsoever we wish for when we pray, believing that we'll receive it, we'll receive it. And that is the key one. The believing has to be there. There has to be substance to that belief. We can call it faith. We have to have faith in what we are going for. When that happens, we have the will to act. We have the will to act. Action is constructive. It is purposeful. And it is absolutely certain as we can have it. And when we have all that in order, we have achievement. And when we can recognize that we started from somewhere and we got somewhere, we can feel that quality. It is not just the quality of achievement. And I can tell you, when I drove back, I was able to call in minutes later from outside. The car is here. It was hot outside. It's air conditioning in the car. And my son could come in and we could be going home as a family. It felt fantastic. And that is an example of motivation, and it has continued to motivate me. When I talk about this, I can think back to that powerful motivation, and for some reason it connects to even greater motivations of why. Consider that, if you would like. This is all about sharing ideas. It's not right. It's just my experience of it. Maybe there's something in here for you. I hope there is. My name is Steve, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Bye-bye for now.